Welcome to the NightCap Live. I'm your host, Dan Dunn. Me, coming to you from my rustic Western saloon in the high desert of California. Not really. Thing I bought. Screen. I hung it up. Yeah. In case I fooled you. Big show tonight. Oh, yeah. We're going to be drinking whiskey tonight. My guests, she's an actress, a comedian, a podcaster, a musical director. She sings the national anthem at all events around the world. I don't know. I'm just making that up. Yeah. Lulu Picart going to be joining us. And then also the Glenmorangie Global Brand Ambassador, David Blackmore, is going to be joining us. And what we're going to be drinking on this episode is Glenmorangie's new, the Cadboll Estate 15-year-old Highland single malt Scotch whiskey. I have been getting into it already, and it's delicious. Can't wait to talk to David about that with you. The man that makes Glenmorangie is a guy named, he's a legend, Dr. Bill Lumsden. He is the director of distilling, whiskey creation, and whiskey stocks. So along with that impressive title comes the freedom to try just about anything at Glenmorangie. Dr. Bill does this side of, bacon infusion. So, for instance, 20-some years ago, he dazzled Scotch connoisseurs, aficionados with this Madeira finish, and it's a whiskey that stayed with me for a long time. I love it. It's the world's first whiskey that was extra matured in Madeira sherry casks, and today collectors are paying top dollar for that to get their hands off of it. This is a guy who knows what he's doing, Dr. Bill. I've sat and drank whiskey with him on many, many occasions, both here in the States and over there in Scotland. And he's passed on a wealth of information. For instance, you've probably heard the expression that whiskey is made in the barrel, but Dr. Bill thinks fermentation comes before the barrel. That process comes before distillation, is the most underappreciated part of the process. If you don't have the right fermentation, then guess what? It's all shit. I don't think he said it that way, but that's what he meant. He also, Bill once told me he's a big fan of James Bond, and one of his favorite Bond films is Thunderball. Remember Thunderball? Great movie. And in the theme song to that film, which was sung by Tom Jones, there's a line in there about Bond. It says, he acts while other men just talk. Dr. Bill acts. Other people talk about making whiskey. He makes great whiskey. So David Blackmore has known and worked with Dr. Bill for many, many years. And we're really lucky to have David on the show here tonight to talk about Glenmorangie. It's a new 2020 expression, and along with another special edition, a special expression, limited edition that's coming out. And tell us about that as well. Where else? Oh, whiskey. That's right. I got you. Can't leave this guy alone. Okay. I invite you, as always, to check out my podcast, What We're Drinking with Dan Dunn. Monday coming up, big show Monday, Pitbull, Mr. Worldwide on my podcast, What We're Drinking. It's available everywhere podcast stream, or you can come to my house. I'm so lonely. Come here. I'll play it for you. Got a stereo right here in the bar. Questions and comments, as always, we got a chat box to the left. It's there. You got something you want to say? You got something you want to say to me? You talking to me? It's the whiskey. Anyway, put some stuff in there. In fact, here's something you could put in there. Every week we have a giveaway, and we give away a Flaviar membership because Flaviar is the sponsor. Duh. So every 3 months, Flaviar members get a package. And in this package, all sorts of goodies. You got samples, highly allocated bottles you're not going to find anywhere else. And now we're doing a lot of online programs because that's what you have to do in the new world we're living in. So we're doing a lot of online programs. There's going to be a lot more coming down the pike. And this is like fun stuff to do and drink during quarantine, courtesy of Flaviar. All you got to do is become a member. Now you can join on your own, but tonight you can try to win a membership. Okay. We're also, another prize, we're going to give a brand new special edition whiskey from Glenmorangie called A Tale of Cake. You know the band Cake? About them. It's not about them. I don't even think Dr. Bill knows who Cake is. the band, but apparently he was a big fan of cake, the dessert, growing up, always fascinated by cake. And so he decided to make a whiskey that would evoke memories of cake, feelings of eating cake. I think that sounds good. I think it does. Oh, I think it sounds delicious. There's no way Dr. Bill would screw anything up. He never has. Never has. So he apparently he's finishing this in Tokaji dessert wine casks. Japanese dessert wine casks is what he's finishing this whiskey in. That's called, what's it called again? Tale of Cake. Tale of Cake. So you're gonna win a bottle of that along with some Glenmorangie branded tumblers. That's fancy word for glasses. Win the glasses, the whiskey. Or you could win the Flaviar membership. It's a big night for you. And all you got to do, okay, 75 years ago today, on this date, September 22nd, 1945, President Harry Truman decided to, we were in a little conflict, you may have heard of it, and Harry Truman decided to officially designate this skirmish we were in World War II. 75 years ago today, he dubbed it World War II. That got me thinking about how much I love World War II movies. There's been just almost an endless stream of World War II movies. But for our purposes, I want you to write in with the 5 best World War II movies ever made. 5 best. Not 4, not 6, 5. Put them in the comments box. Send them in. The end of this program, David and Lulu and me, mostly me, are going to decide who gets the prizes. And there's 2. Membership, whiskey, tumblers. Well, 3. Whiskey tumblers is 1 prize. So get those in. Get them in early. You can only enter once. I know some of you try to get sneaky. Don't do it. Don't do it. All right. It's time to bring on our first guest. She is a New York City-based musician, actress, musical director. She's toured with Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella. She was a music supervisor for Norwegian Creative Studios. Who doesn't love their work? I do. Walt Disney World, never heard of them. Orlando Studios. At the outset of this pandemic, there we go. Just got to get right. She helped co-found #ThankYou5. That's a nonprofit that helps feed medical workers on the front lines in New York City. That is a noble cause, and we need those people need all the help they can get. So let's bring her on and say thank you for that. Lulu Picart, how are you?
Hi, so glad to be here.
Nice to see you. That's a you're in a, what is that? Is that purple room? Is that a purple?
I'm in a blue room.
Blue.
Nice and calming for the pandemic.
Color. It's blue.
Yeah, that's okay. There's a lot of color with me and the thing, so just adjust your screens, everyone. Sure. Make it the color you want to make it.
It's very
Live
bright.
Your life.
You got the red, blue, festive. How are you feeling festive? Have you had some whiskey?
Well, first of all, totally festive.
Have a toast, me and you.
Yeah. Hey, what's up?
Ching. There we go.
There it is.
So Lulu, tell us about yourself. Tell us what you got. You got podcasts. You got.
Lots.
I mean, that's probably the thing now, since you're not really getting out much, right? I'm imagining.
It's true. I'm not getting out much. Thanks, Dan. Yeah, I have a podcast. I actually have 2 of them. I have a daily podcast called The Daily Happy. It's some news, but always with a little we leave you with a smile on your face at the end, even though the world is going insane and is a dumpster fire. So that's kind of that funness. And then I also have a comedy podcast about imaginary luxury travel. And every week we take a fake $10,000 and we tell you how you can spend it somewhere in the world in one day. So that's a lot of fun. And I'm really into podcasting right now because, I'm at home with a microphone. So here we are. But other than that, you can usually see me on stages or sometimes on your TV in the background or sometimes in the front ground, wherever, and living life. And when everything comes back, I will be on Broadway in the new revival of 1776. So
wow.
That's fun. Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah. You live in New York. You're from Florida, right?
Yes. I am actually quarantining from my pandemic location. which is my parents' house in Orlando. So I'm here in the central air conditioning, which is great, and living life in a place bigger than my studio apartment. There's a dog here, life is good. So yeah, but normally New York and whomever will have me also.
It would, with all due respect to New York,
Yeah.
it feels to me as though Florida would be a better place to be right now. New York just feels very claustrophobic it would seem that way.
Yeah.
And when the cold weather arrives, I wonder how that's going to be in New York City.
Well, and my space was small. I had this small studio apartment in Tribeca. So my social time was spent definitely outside of the apartment because my apartment was like little. And if you've never lived in New York, everyone, and you're like, oh yeah, little apartment. It's not like Friends. Okay, if you've watched Friends and you're like, the apartment's fine. No. I could have maybe one person over, and that person would have to be someone who wouldn't judge me. So it's a lot nicer to be in my parents' house, and my mom cooks amazing Filipino food, so I've been able to like eat great and live my life, and I'm really lucky to be here while everything figures itself out because theater and film kind of went away for a little bit. So,
sure.
Here I am.
That is one of the more interesting things about New York as represented in the movies and television is that people, they're waiting tables and yet they have this amazing apartment or whatever. But the thing that I love the best, the most unrealistic thing that you see in every movie or TV show about New York is the parking spaces.
Oh, forget it.
Wherever you're going, like, oh, we got to go to the UN. Let's pull right up. I got to go see a guy. Yeah.
Even Seinfeld, which is like the most New York-y you can get as a sitcom, they still had a car. And they made jokes about the car, but I was like, no, you wouldn't have a car.
Well, at least they did the episode where they fought over the parking. It was called the parking space.
Yes, that one's true. That's true. I also appreciated when they had the 212 versus 646 conversation, which were the area codes. And I don't know if anybody else got that doesn't live in New York, but it was flippin' funny. And yeah, New York is not You've Got Mail. You can't work at an indie bookstore and live on the Upper West Side. Not going to happen. It's not like Friends. You can't live in the Village and be unemployed in a giant apartment. So it's its own thing. And I knew that for my self-care, I could not hack the pandemic.
Could not stay. You know what? I don't care how big of a star you are. You know what New York's like? Here's a big star. Here's what New York's like. Parking. Alec Baldwin's had like 15 fights over parking spaces in New York. Yeah, he gets in fight. That's what it's really like. First of all, you shouldn't ever be driving.
Helen Mirren's on the train all the time. You know what I mean? I see people on the train all the time, and I'm like, that's what you do. You can't.
What would it take to get you on the subway right now?
Oh,
how much Glenmorangie would you have to drink?
This, exactly.
In order to be able to be brave enough to get on the New York City subway during a pandemic.
Oh, don't want to do it.
I mean, nope. I used to think the worst thing. Again, I don't live there. I'm from the East Coast, but I've spent an inordinate amount of time in New York. But yet, I've been out in California long enough where I still do things. I remember a couple of years ago, I was in New York and we were running to catch the subway. We were going to go over see some friends in Brooklyn, and there's one car that's completely jam-packed, and then the other one is empty, like literally empty.
Wait,
so,
pause. Did you go in the empty car? You went in the empty car?
I went in the empty car. Yeah. If you live in New York, you immediately recognize the fact that one car is completely full and the other one, that there might be a problem. I didn't recognize that until I ran in and the door shut and the odor hit me.
Yes.
Somebody had soiled the car, the train car, and it was right there. And I said, nope, I couldn't even get through to the next car.
It's rough, man. There are times
I miss people shitting in. You know what? Someday you're gonna be shitting in train cars again. This pandemic will be over. That's all.
From your mouth to De Blasio's ears. Mm-hmm. I realized after living in New York for a while that I did not go 24 hours. This is going to be, everyone take a drink because you're going to need it for this next one. I don't go 24 hours without smelling someone else's pee.
In what way? Are you making requests, or you mean you just smell
Oh
it?
no, that's just life as you
Not
walk
actively,
down
you're
the
not
street.
actively soliciting.
Oh no,
the
yeah,
smell.
I'm
Okay,
not like collect them alling, you know.
got it. All right. Excuse me,
It's
sir.
just
I noticed you're going to the bathroom.
yeah.
Yeah. You mind bringing a
Can you
sample?
give me a little odor in there? I'm just trying to
Mind
complete
bringing
my
some out.
collection.
Done.
Yeah.
Boy.
No,
Oh
so
wait, David
not being
Blackmore. Somewhere, David Blackmore is watching this, going, "I am worried."
I'm
He's very worried.
I'm
Yeah.
staying at home, he says. That being said, everyone, I love New York. People in New York are like, oh, she hates it here. No, it's great. It's great. But there are things that go along with it that you're fine with when you're there. And then when you leave, you go, was I really okay with living with a fridge that I could only put a 6-pack in for a year? What just happened?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, I want to pivot before people at Flaviar have a heart attack from that defecation on it. Let's pivot to what's your knowledge of Scotch? Where would you put yourself as? Are you a sophisticated Scotch drinker? Are you a newbie? Is it something you're interested in and you just got to learn more?
I think on a scale of 1 to 10, I think I'm a 6, but when I'm drunk, I think I'm a 9. Is that fair?
In terms of knowledge.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
if I'm drunk, I'm like,
I think that about most things when I'm drunk.
Scotch. Yeah. But I love Scotch. I like I really love non-sweet spirits. So Scotch is right up my alley. In a way that I have to be in a mood for bourbon for, but Scotch I can do all the time. And I like all sorts of Scotches. I really love peaty Scotches that people usually like, they'll smell it and they go, what is that? That's my dream. I like it to smell like a campfire. I love it. Glenmorangie, I love. I have a really
I'm very impressed.
Part of my
A lot
life.
of people screw this name up. A lot of people don't pronounce the whiskey correctly, and you're nailing it.
Well, let me
It's
be
usually
honest. I learned.
Glenmorangie. Most people say Glenmorangie. It's Glenmorangie.
Well, it's because I was talking to David before this, and he says Glenmorangie, and so I just adopted it. But because I'm an actor, on my face it seemed like I knew it.
So like you've known this for years. Yeah.
This is what I do. I say nonsense with conviction, and it's made a career for me. So, you live and you learn. But yeah, there was a period in my life, a very specific gig actually, that this obviously not the new Cadboll estate, but the one with the yellow label with the gold on it. That was like my drink for a while.
Fantastic. I mean, again, Dr. Bill Lumsden is a legend in the business, and let's bring on the man now who is he's legend adjacent. At least legend adjacent, I would say that. He is an old friend of mine. I've known him for a long time. He's the global brand ambassador to Glenmorangie, David Blackmore. How are you, man?
Hey guys, how's it going?
Good to see you.
Look at that setup. Look at that
bar. I've been enjoying the banter.
Yeah. You got any stories about pooping on the subway you want to add?
Yeah, I completely understand and empathize with the getting in the wrong carriage.
You lived in New York. You lived in New York for a stretch, right?
Well, I like to tell like everybody who lives in New Jersey, I like to pretend I lived in New York. But yeah, in truth, I lived across in dirty Jersey for a while. For a good 10 years actually. But yeah.
You and I knew each other. Am I wrong here? Was it like the Shefflin and Somerset days?
Almost. I moved to the US. Actually, I've just celebrated my 15-year anniversary of landing. On the 16th of September 2005, I landed at Newark Airport on the Continental Airlines flight from Edinburgh to Newark direct, 2 suitcases, not a clue, so nothing's changed there, and a month in a cheap Hilton Homewood Suites. And that was it. It was just like figure it out. So
yeah, I remember
trying to figure it out.
I remember meeting you, and it was probably around that time over the old offices there on was it 10th Avenue and
well, even before that, we were up in Two Park Avenue. It might have been there.
That's right. Yeah, a long time ago, man. It's been and how much growth that's happened just in that time. In
the world of Scotch whiskey, the world of whiskey has just changed out of all recognition. 2005, I was still battling the perception everywhere that that Scotch whiskey, any whiskey, bourbon, American whiskey, Irish whiskey, Scotch whiskey, was just what your granddad drank if he was still able to pick up a glass, strong enough to pick up a glass. And that is, I'm glad to say, we've still got barriers to break through. Absolutely. I'm not saying the job's done, but where whiskey is now, I look at the diversity of people that are enjoying whiskey. It's such an amazing, gratifying thing to see. Really, the thing that makes me happiest, it's not the whiskey itself. It's not helping with making it with Dr. Bill. They're all brilliant. But the thing that really gets me is when I find someone who's new to whiskey, and I just try and get my enthusiasm to rub off on them. That's it. And if it works, wow, it's like high five moment.
I think you do that. You and I, we saw each other a few times last year on the road for an event called the Whiskey X, and you were holding court. And a lot of people line up at the Glenmorangie table to try the whiskey. For me, what I love about it, it's one of the lighter, fruitier whiskeys, scotches, and it kind of is unique in that regard in terms of and Bill can get into the heavy stuff as well. He makes some other whiskeys that are the polar opposite. There we go. Ardbeg. That's what I was going to say.
Love Ardbeg.
Ardbeg is, for those of you the uninitiated out there, Ardbeg was Airnum Bashed was one of the ones I thought was great. What's the peatiest one they make?
So one of the Supernovas is probably technically the peatiest, but you're absolutely right. Glenmorangie's about as far away from Ardbeg flavor-wise as you could get and still be drinking Scotch. But there's a time and a place for both and everything in between. That's what's beautiful about it. I get to represent the bookends of the kind of flavor spectrum of Scotch. But I absolutely, as you can see, appreciate everything in between, all the books, the library in between as well. And Glenmorangie, I think maybe sometimes is a bit overlooked. It's often people's gateway into single malt, and then they quite rightly go off and explore elsewhere. And that's great, and I'm happy they do. But I would implore people, please just don't forget Glenmorangie. Come back and taste us again, because you never forget your first love. That's for sure.
We got a question for you, David, already. Alex Sefanoff said he loves Glenmorangie for its citrus flavors.
Yeah.
Do all of the expressions of Glenmorangie have a hint of citrus in them?
Very much, pretty much, yes. In one way or the other, we have this kind of citrusy floral note in there. And I would say you could break down the flavors of Glenmorangie into two. There's lots of complexity, but you can break it into two camps. You can break it down to the sort of citrus, floral, fruity notes that are by and large coming from distillation. This tall still model here is all to do with that. And
you have the tallest stills in Scotland, right?
Tallest stills in Scotland. Before we were on air, we were kind of chatting earlier about gin, actually, just randomly. And I mentioned that actually Glenmorangie stills are really a design popular in London in the early 1800s for making gin. And our two gentlemen who were from our Highland home in Tain, the town of Tain, who had spent 20 years running gin distilleries in London, came back up to Glenmorangie and put a big investment into the distillery, and then rebuilt everything and put in this style of still, because they knew about distilling, and they knew that tall stills would create a really elegant, floral, perfumed vapor style of spirit, because the vapor has to work a bit harder to get to the top of the still. Like I said, now is not the time to give you an hour-long chemistry lesson. No one's going to thank me for that. But trust me, the science is there, and it gives you that lovely, fruity, floral note.
Well, let's do this then, and please, Lulu, any questions you have for David, fire them off. Let's talk about this specific expression, the Cadboll estate, right here that we're trying.
And I have questions for Lulu as well, because we were chatting earlier, and I didn't realize you're from the Philippines. And my last trip before lockdown was my first ever trip to Manila, and just loved it. Lulu, is it true? I think it's true to say that the Philippines start Christmas celebrations earlier than anyone else on the planet. Like September 1st.
You think they start earlier than Target? I'm surprised
Yes,
by that. Okay,
seriously.
cool.
September 1st comes around in Manila, and the Christmas trees are up everywhere.
Well, it's a country that never really has a season change, right?
It's true.
So they can
True.
start whenever they want, to be honest. They
It's
can
kind of
decide it's
amazing, though.
Christmas in July anytime. Yeah, it's a country that loves celebration. It
Yeah.
loves festivals, it loves fiestas, we love parties, we just love social gatherings, and we love drink. There's a lot of alcohol flowing in Manila as well.
I think 3 or 4 days in Manila were nowhere near enough, I have to say.
I'm so glad.
Well, along those lines, Chris Maxwell has a question for you, Lulu. Does your mom make, I hope this is a real question, Lumpia?
Oh, yeah. Are
I
you
love
single?
Lumpia,
Who just wrote that in? Are you single? I'm just kidding.
Chris Maxwell, let us know if you're single. Yeah, Lumpia. What is Lumpia?
Lumpia is
Lumpia?
it's the Filipino, like if you think of an egg roll, it's basically the same shape and idea of an egg roll, but with a different flavor inside. But it's still usually with meat and like cabbage and just like a normal egg roll. And it's a thinner wrapper. So if you go to a Chinese place, they kind of have a thick wrapper that has little bubbles on it when it hits the oil. The Filipino wrapper is much thinner and it's completely smooth once it fries.
My mouth's watering right now.
Oh, listen, it's so delicious. So
How do you think that Lumpia would be with the Glenmorangie, the Cadboll?
Well, I'll be honest, I don't love Scotch with oily food. That's just me.
Good
I don't
point.
love it with fried food. I don't really. I think like a cold beer maybe with the lumpia would be a little, but for Philippine desserts, I think a Scotch would be really nice next to it because the desserts in the Philippines are super sweet usually, and I think this might cut it really well. Yeah.
David, what kind of food do you think is, I mean, I would think oysters obviously would be great with this, and salty foods like that.
Yeah, so the Cadboll Estate 15 has spent, over the 10-year-old sort of classic Glenmorangie, it's spent an extra 5 years in American oak. And the second part is that we're only using what we call first fill American white oak barrels. So they're fresher. They've only ever had bourbon in them. They've never had any Scotch in them before. So they give a lot of these lovely kind of vanilla, coconut, creme brulee kind of notes that complement the citrus notes that we've already mentioned really well. And we get probably over the 10-year-old that Lulu, you said was your whiskey of choice and has fond memories for you. What you're going to probably find here is that this is a little bit creamier, a little bit richer. So food-wise, on the savory side, a big plump oyster with still some salinity, but that creamy oyster with a bit of salinity, I think that would be brilliant.
You mind if I'm going to do a little Postmates action here? I want
seriously. Oh, can I ask a question about those tasting notes? So the creaminess that you're talking about, the sweetness, the caramel, I kind of even taste almost a chocolate, but it's at the end. So after I swallow it and then I make this really stupid looking face and I go, then I taste it. So is there a term for the vapors that stay in your mouth or the kind of the aromas that, like, you know what I mean? Because it's a really specific part of the process.
The finish. I mean, the finish would be. Yeah. I'm sorry, Dave. You're the whiskey expert now. I'm sorry.
If you want to hear a ridiculously geeky term, right? Let me just explain this briefly. Most of us probably know that we're all aware that we really only have 4 or maybe 5 senses of true flavor: salt, sweet, bitter, sour, and umami. Everything else is aroma. And there's a thing back here in your sinuses called the olfactory epithelium. Boring you to tears now. But anyway, that's
David Lynch. Isn't that a David Lynch movie too? That's a David Lynch movie.
That's why when you've got a head cold, you think you can't taste anything. It's actually you can't smell it. So that sense, Lulu, that you're saying of that kind of that vapor flavor smell in your mouth, top of your mouth and into your nasal cavities, that has a name, and it's even more geeky. It's called retronasal olfaction.
Oh, that's just not sexy. That's not you need a sexier name for that. For real. Like, that's not sexy. You can't. I was with you until you brought up retro olfactory.
I'm sorry to tell you, but it's not. The news is not good. I'm afraid you've got retronasal olfaction.
By the way, before David was married, Lulu, I guess you can see how he used to woo the ladies.
Hey, I like
Let me tell you about.
Hey, you want to try my
Have you heard of
retro?
retro? Yeah.
It's good. That's the pickup line you needed.
Why he lived
That's
in
the pickup
Jersey.
line.
Yeah,
This is why my life until I was married was just one sad, sorry,
Oh gosh.
lonely existence.
Yeah, that's why you kept the booze around. You were like,
You
listen.
get on the PATH train and go back to Jersey with your fancy words.
Talking on the PATH train home.
I want to remind everybody out there, please fire off questions and comments for Lulu and David or myself. And also the question tonight, the win, we got 2 prizes on the line, is the 5 best World War II movies ever. The 5 best World War II movies. Get them in. You probably got about 10, 15 more minutes to get those in. And we're going to go to them. David, I got a question from Bob from Santa Monica, wants to know, what's up with the no E? I imagine he means the spelling of whiskey in Scotland and Japan. They don't use an E. Why?
Yeah, well, actually, it was a good question. But also, I'd point out that there are many whiskey brands in America that don't use an E as well. So Maker's Mark, no E on Maker's Mark.
That's true.
And in fact, I've been told that the federal papers that define what whiskey is in America legally are all written without an E. So there you go. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's the same word. It's an anglicization of the term aquavitae or usquebaugh in Scots Gaelic. And it all comes from the same source, and it means water of life. And that's all that matters, really. Whether you spell it with or without an E. Some countries, like Scotland, have legislated so that we have to spell it without an E. Other countries, like America, have kind of developed a tradition where you usually spell it with an E. Doesn't matter.
John Grunberg wants to know, is the Cadboll now part of the core expressions, or is it an extension of the private editions that might have ended with the Alta?
Okay. Good question. So private edition range lasted for 10 years. And last year, with the 10th private edition, that stopped. So we've put the kind of private edition range to bed. This is not an extension of that. This is intended to be, right now at least, and I say that very pointedly because I can't say any more right now. Right now, the Cadboll 15 is intended to be just a one-off treat for our North American fans. So this is only available in small quantities in Canada and Mexico, and the bulk of it in the US. And you can't even get this in Scotland. Wow. That's pissed some people off, I can tell you.
I bet.
Lulu, let me ask you, what are you getting here? Let's get your get your impressions of this whiskey. What are you tasting?
Well, it's smoother to me than the yellow label Glenmorangie, which is the 10-year. I think. I don't know. I know by color I go by color. So it's definitely smoother than that, not just in the taste and the way it hits the back of my like the back of what I would call my soft palate, because I'm a singer. But also in the textures, it's a little thicker. It's a little more viscous in a good way. Viscous sounds bad, but you know what I mean. So there's a little bit, it's not quite as syrupy as bourbon. You're not going into that much sugar, but it definitely has that silky mouthfeel kind of thing. And I'm drinking it at room temp. So I don't know if it would be, good with maybe a little cold water in it, probably with like a little dropper.
So David, tell us about that. Why would people and that's a really good point, Lulu. So why I always recommend trying it neat right up front. But David, explain why you might want to put a little couple of drops of water in there after you do that.
I mean, first of all, I just want to say, however you want to drink it and whatever makes you feel happy, I am totally okay with. Drink whiskey how you want and don't let anyone dictate anything about that. This is a pleasurable thing, and anyone who tells you who dictates to you will destroy that kind of moment. So the most important thing is that. But if you're looking for a little bit of advice and how I personally experience this whiskey, a dash of water is going to kind of broaden the range of aromas in any whiskey, pretty much, as a general rule. You'll pick up probably more fruity floral notes as a general rule in most whiskeys if you add room temperature water. A lot of people say ice is a kind of cardinal sin. You must not do that. BS. You do what you want. You know, sorry. I know.
I'm
Excuse
gonna
me,
try
what?
it with ice. I'm gonna put a little ice in and see what
Hold
happens.
on, I think I just dropped something.
It's what you will find is you will probably close down some of those citrusy floral notes, and what you'll leave behind and therefore amplify are more of the kind of vanilla, the coconut, the milk chocolate, the white chocolate, the almond, the macadamia notes. If that's what you like, why would anyone tell you it's wrong to add water, to ice, to amplify those notes?
I would do it because I'm an asshole. I would just do it for that reason. But you asked. That's all. I would just.
And I
do
won't do it because I'm a Hufflepuff. You can drink your whiskey however you want with me.
We got more questions here coming in for you. We got random. What would you say is a major difference between Cadboll and Cygnet? Cygnet is what a lovely whiskey that is.
Right.
Because he said Cygnet's the one he recommends to anybody who wants to try something top shelf.
Okay, so actually, they are quite different in flavor, but they share some commonalities in the way they're made. Cygnet can actually contain some whiskey that is almost exactly Cadboll within Cygnet, but Cygnet really gets its flavor profile. Funny enough, I have a sample here. Can you see the color of this barley in there?
Yeah.
This is what they call chocolate malted barley. It's been roasted, so it's blackened compared to regular barley.
Yeah.
And this is what brewers would use to make stout. When we make Cygnet, we actually brew a kind of crude stout at Glenmorangie instead of the regular crude beer that distillers make. And when we take that stout and we distill it, and it obviously loses its color, everything coming off a still is clear, so we're not getting the color from there, but we get this flavor that's just like espresso coffee beans. So that's where Cygnet differs. But we always have to tone that coffee espresso note in Cygnet down slightly. And the best way to do it, this is all lovely creamy notes. This is like adding a bit of cream to your espresso to make a cappuccino or a latte or something, would be the analogy. It's just that. So that is a component part of Cygnet, kind of.
Yeah, the Cygnet, I think probably that came out in about 2018.
No, Cygnet's been out for since 2009.
Maybe I'm thinking. What am I thinking of? I guess I am thinking of something else. You know what it might have been? What was the one you did? Was it Pride?
We've had a couple of Pride releases now. We had Pride 81, which was Chateau Yquem finished. But what you might have been thinking about, Dan, is that I think 2018, 2019, we made a big deal about Cygnet again because it was the 10-year anniversary. So it could be that. We did a whole kind of hoopla.
You know what I was thinking about, and this is something that I wrote about for the Rob Report. That was what it was the Glenmorangie Pride 1974, which you have to subscribe to the Rob Report if you even want to imagine you could afford this Scotch. I think it was about $10,000, right? But yes. I got to try it, and I got to tell you, boy, that I think you only made about 500 bottles of that, crystal decanters of that, and
Baccarat, 1 liter Baccarat crystal decanter. Yeah,
I just remember it being like this, baked apples and menthol and sweet. It was just such a amazing whiskey. I remember tying it into the fact that there would have been, what was the fight? The Rumble in the Jungle. I remember researching it. And the very day they laid down that cask,
yes,
was the fight, the Rumble in the Jungle. And I think that's one of the things, David, wouldn't you agree that when you're drinking, especially these aged whiskeys, is to think about who made it and who was around, what was happening. This thing that's in my glass got put in barrel the day of, you weren't around, Lulu. I was around. You weren't around yet, but yeah. Isn't that what do you think of something like that, Lulu? Have you had some whiskeys or some stuff that's older than you and been maybe struck by the history of it?
Yeah, I have. And it's intense. And not to take this into a weird place, but sometimes I'm like, these people who put this drink down had no idea that someone that looked like me would ever drink this. or that, that just it's in a different country. It was made in a different country. It was traveled. And I've been lucky enough because I like spirits so much that when I travel, I look to try whatever I can. And it's incredible to think of that. There's so much care, there's so much time and patience. I am not a patient person, so to work on something that long is something that's so foreign to the way that I structure my life, that there's just an intense amount of tending that you have to do to take care of something like that, and the fact that you can just purchase that with money is crazy to me.
I love that,
Kind
Lulu. So, Lulu, I love what you said there. It's so true, though. I, I'm not the youngest anymore. I'm not the oldest either. And even at my kind of mid 40s, I get to have a very privileged role as a kind of part-time member of our whiskey creation team. So as well as an ambassador, when I'm back in Scotland, I get to, kind of present my ideas for future innovations and ideas for whiskies. And some of these ideas there's been a handful now that they've gone with and they're working on, I may never taste. They're going to be out after I'm feeding the daisies, pushing up daisies. And that, I kind of love that, actually, personally. I think that's brilliant. And the fact that some of the older Glenmorangies, like Pride, Bill Lumsden carefully put the cask together based on the flavor profile of the cask that he has in his warehouse, but he didn't distill it. This was generations past that did that. And I just find that amazing. And I really love that. I think in today's world where if your iPhone is a year old, it's old. I love having something that's in the other direction.
It feels eternal in a way. We got Lulu, Sarah Schenkel Welcomer wrote in and said, a little dose of your humor made my night, and you are just as amazing as you were in grad school.
Hey,
I agree.
P.S. everyone, I went to grad school. Surprise.
There we go.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Sarah.
So glad you're here.
Me too.
She was there to see me drink my way through grad school, so she's not surprised to see that this is how my career.
But here's the thing. You say you drank, but you clearly were paying attention because you seemed your level of knowledge is a lot greater than what you let on coming into this thing. I mean, you know what you're talking about.
No. Well, I'm a nerd and I like nerdy things. I like geeking out about things. So when David talked about, I don't want to get into the science of the giraffe still. I was like, oh, but could you please? Because I actually really want to know. So we'll talk offline.
I do want to.
Yeah, and I think it actually goes back, Dan, into what you were talking about. As you start to appreciate things more, you get fascinated by the way things get put together, right? So if you love food, you want to know why certain ingredients create certain things or whatever it is. And if you like spirits, you want to know how those flavors came about, because I can taste vanilla and caramel and chocolate and it's silky, but I know he didn't put vanilla and caramel and chocolate in it. So what are those things? That's one of the reasons I also love gins, because they're so different than to get nerdy about what those flavors are. So I'm a layman in all of this who really likes to learn things and to know things. And so maybe I have a little bit of knowledge, but I more just have curiosity. I don't think I really, and that can get you far. Curiosity can.
But literally, all of us that are in the industry, I hate that term to start with. We all started off as laymen and women at some point,
Yeah.
Bill Lumsden got into whiskey because he tasted, actually, genuinely, not bullshit, I promise you, Glenmorangie 10-year-olds, as it was known then, back in the day, as a student. I won't bullshit you. It wasn't Glenmorangie original that turned me on to whiskey first, but, I love it now. And you talked about, Dan, about this, memories and going back. Very, very personal thing for me with this one, that it's a 15-year-old whiskey, right? And it's barley from our Cadboll fields, our own single estate that we used. And we harvested those in the fall of 2004, the autumn of 2004. And at that time, I was working for the Scotch Malt Whisky Society in London. I just met Bill Lumsden and I was hassling him for a job. So it takes me straight back. I know exactly what I was doing. And it was a really momentous moment in my life when this barley was being harvested for that.
And now it's in that bottle in
So
front of
cool.
you.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Well, that's it. They're time capsules. Like
Yeah.
great bottles of wine, great bottles of spirits that have taken a long time are absolute time capsules of the place that they were put together, of that terroir and all that stuff. Also in 2004, I was in grad school with Sarah Schenkel Welcomer. How cool is that?
I don't know where I was. Somewhere. I think I was here. Possibly.
You're
I want to
in the
remind
medieval
everybody.
in your medieval bar.
I'm giving you 2 minutes right now. You got 2 minutes. The question is to win these prizes we're giving away the 5 best World War II movies of all time. Keith, closing this thing in 2 minutes. Start sending me the entries in 2 minutes. Get them in, everybody. We're going to be giving them out. I got a couple more questions here for David. What do we got? Oh, Jeff Scott says, I have 2 bottles of Cellar 13. It's one of my favorites. Could you give a little history of Cellar 13?
Yeah, actually, it kind of has a bit of a relation to Cadboll 15. Cellar 13 was one of the first whiskies where Glenmorangie was starting to look at, had actually released whiskey where we've been looking at the quality of the American oak. The other thing we've been playing with, as well as the estate-grown barley, is really trying to improve the quality of the American oak casks we're getting. So we worked with our colleagues at Brown-Forman, actually, with their cooperage in Louisville mostly, to look at slower growth oak that is actually more sustainable long-term, luckily, but it also is more porous. And that means it kind of is more spongy and it soaks the spirit up once you've made it into a cask. The crucial other elements are we have to air season that oak for like 2 to 3 years out in the open. We can't rush it and oven dry it. We actually do a very light char rather than a heavy, charcoal char on the inside. We want a light char. And all these things are what we think make the very best American oak barrel for the purposes of making Glenmorangie. And that kind of started with things like Cellar 13. There was a product called Artisan Cask after that. And then Astar, Glenmorangie Astar led on from there. Well, some of that is also kind of the first fill American oak casks here are that kind of quality casks as well.
We got Chris Maxwell said Lulu's making a strong case to be my favorite NightCap guest ever. So take that, David. Take that, David Blackmore. You stink. No, sorry.
That's okay.
That's how I read it.
I'm pulling that as a review from my press kit.
But Lulu, we also got RJ McGee wants to know more about your podcast and how you came up with the premise.
Oh, thanks, RJ McGee. Well, we came up with the premise because my co-host and I are both actors, and actors are very often don't get work unless someone gives them work. Right? I mean, you work hard to get those auditions, but we wanted to have something that we had control over and something that we could create and keep creating on a normal basis. So we started that in January of 2018, and now we perform and speak at podcast conferences all over the country. We've been on Sirius XM with it. We've done all sorts of stuff with it. So it's a lot of fun. And in 2.5 weeks, being completely safe with COVID, because I'm very, very careful, we are doing a tour and going to perform in our like listeners' driveways. So we have some listeners.
I thought you were going to say nursing homes, because that would
Could you imagine? Yeah, that's my.
We're trying to be safe.
That's my demographic. Those nursing home people, yeah, they love imaginary travel.
Sorry, my brain goes there. It goes dark. It goes dark.
Listen, I'm okay with it. What?
Our listeners' driveways.
Driveways and backyards.
That's amazing.
Just doing it for their families. They're our most engaged listeners. We're touring the country for 3 weeks, and we're filming a web series, but we're being very safe, and we're quarantining before, quarantining after. I bought all the sanitation, all the things.
And tell us the name of the show again, and it's available everywhere.
Everywhere that you would get Dan Dunn's podcast. What's it called? Drink with me. That's a Les Mis song. What's it called? Drink. What we're drinking. What we're drinking. Did I get that right?
Yes.
I got it right. What we're drinking.
Yes.
What we're drinking. You can get my podcasts, which are 10K Dollar Day, 10K Dollar Day, and The Daily Happy, in case you just really need 10 minutes of me every day in your ear. Chris Maxwell.
Everybody does. And
yeah.
With that, guys, I think it's time to start. Let's start going on to our what is this? No, I don't care about that. Okay, so now we're going to go into our list of the 5 best World War II movies.
Okay, okay.
I have opinions.
David has opinions. I will fully admit that my this is not my genre. So like my two favorite World War II movies would be like The Sound of Music and the Star Trek Enterprise episode where the aliens are the Nazis. but I'm still here to weigh in with as much fake confidence as I have.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So here's what I did. I made a list personally, which I'm not going to reveal yet. There are so many entries here. So I'm trying to think of the best way to do this. We'll just hit a couple of them and see what we think here. So Dan Murphy said The Longest Day, The Great Escape, The Battle of the Bulge, Saving Private Ryan, and Kelly's Heroes. All fantastic movies. David, I'll throw to you since Lulu admittedly doesn't know a lot of these movies.
I saw Saving Private Ryan.
I'd go with two of those at least. I would say Great Escape and what was the other one he said? Longest Day. I think Great Escape and Longest Day definitely deserve to be on that list. I would add probably Schindler's List.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Schindler's List. Bridge over the River Kwai.
Oh, good movie.
Has to be on that list.
Alec Guinness. And is that 5?
That is not. And then the 5th one is tough. I mean, there's a lot here. Just do what I did, David, and put more than 5 on there. That's what I did. It's a toss up between. Well, here's some of the other ones. Casablanca.
Yes, I got that on mine.
Right.
Did we say The Thin Red Line?
Oh, I like that one.
Actually, no.
The Dirty Dozen.
Dirty Dozen was on my list, absolutely.
Dunkirk. What about Dunkirk? Recently,
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Patton, George C. Scott.
Inglorious Bastards.
Which one was the one with that looked like one camera shot? Was that wasn't Dunkirk? It was really recent.
That was Saving Private Ryan, wasn't it?
No. That was World War I, though. That was the Sam
right.
movie. Yeah.
Because I nearly got my wars mixed up. I was thinking the English patient. That's World War I as well, right?
Das Boot was another one. I remember the movie Das Boot was fantastic. Did we say we did Saving Private Schindler's List? 30 Dozen Thin Red. Okay. Let's see. Let me go through some of these. Battle of the Bull. Man, there's going to be so many that are just close. All right. So a couple of these Clint Eastwood movies. Remember the Letters from Iwo Jima? Jojo Rabbit. Jojo Rabbit was great. Life is Beautiful. All right, so there's one way to go with this.
The Glenn Miller story.
You go with the heartwarming. Well, Life is Beautiful and Jojo Rabbit are both really heartwarming, touching. They took a different spin, right? Have you seen those movies?
I loved Life is Beautiful. Was a beautiful film.
It was great, and Jojo Rabbit was so good. But that's a different kind of World War II movie.
You're looking for a war movie.
I don't know. Sophie's Choice. What about Sophie's Choice?
Okay, that's just, you can't pull that out and I gotta drink more.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm gonna start cracking open the anonymous bottles.
Right, here's one. This list is pretty good here. Ryan Lieb says Captain America: The First Avenger, Saving Private Ryan, Patton, Inglourious Basterds, and Schindler's List. Pretty good.
I think once we say Schindler's List, you either have to include it or we just have to take it on an assumption because otherwise we're assholes.
Well, Schindler's List has to be on there, but I have to say, for me, number one kind of war movie, Second World War movie would be Great Escape.
All right, so why don't we say this? Great Escape and Schindler's List has to be on the winning list.
I agree.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
I think we mentioned Seinfeld earlier. That was the other episode when Jerry's mom said you were making out during Schindler's List.
Oh, God.
That is a great episode.
You were making out in Schindler's List. All right. This is, let me see here. Keith, you just got to let me know if anybody we pick already won. Okay, so Harold Gross came in with Inglourious Basterds, Sound of Music.
Yeah.
But is the Sound of Music really?
Yes, it is. Yes, wait. It was on my list. It was on my list. Sound of Music, the good one. Like literally, the crux of it is them running away from the Nazis.
I like it because it seems like this very kind of flippant movie, but it's got some really dark undercurrent.
All right, so Harold Gross has Inglourious Basterds, Sound of Music, The Great Escape, Casablanca, and Life is Beautiful. That's a pretty good list.
That's a good list. That's a good
All right, so Harold Gross is in the right. But first of all, which prize are we going to give? We'll give away the Flaviar membership first. So this is going to be all right. Now, let me see here. Oh, that's good. Michael Argenziano, Schindler's List, 30 Dozen, Saving Private Ryan, Life is Beautiful, The Great Escape.
Oh.
In the running.
Yeah.
The difference is not Sound of Music. So Lulu, with that, you want Sound of Music.
I'm not. It's not a deal breaker. I understand it might not be in a lot of people's World War II lists. I'm just saying, of my list of movies, it counts, but it doesn't. It's not a deal breaker.
Okay.
I haven't thought about it, but it's a good one for sure.
It is a good one, right? It's a good one. Yeah,
it's a good
one. I mean, he rips up the Nazi flag in the middle of the movie. Max does.
What about this one? This one here, Steve Spittler, Saving Private Ryan, Dunkirk, Jacob the Liar, The Pianist, which Adrian Brody won the Academy Award for that.
That's a good one.
And Sound of Music.
No Great Escape.
No Great Escape. Deal breaker.
We've decided that's a deal breaker. That's a
deal breaker.
Everyone just type it in again. Just type it in again, everybody.
What's that?
I think Great Escape is a deal breaker. Am I wrong?
I think so. I think it's on my list.
Dam Busters. We forgot about that too.
Somebody did put Dam Busters in here. I saw it. All right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to make an executive decision. How about we do this? Harold Gross, Inglourious Basterds, Sound of Music, Great Escape, Casablanca, Life is Beautiful.
That's a good list.
That's the that's the Flaviar membership. Harold Gross, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Cheers.
Now, cheers. Now, here's one. This one is interesting, too. Danielle Garrison, Inglourious Basterds, Saving Private Ryan, Pan's Labyrinth, which was Schindler's List and Enemy at the Gates. It's a pretty good list.
That's an outside of the box list.
It kind of is, right?
Yeah.
And then Irie Light says Monuments Men, the George Clooney movie.
Yeah,
it was a good movie. It was
yeah.
But I mean, it's a different movie. Saving Private Ryan, Captain America: The First Avenger, Dunkirk, and Letters from Iwo Jima. And what I liked about Letters from Iwo Jima, it was sympathetic to, it was about the other side. It was about Japan, and that's a good one, man. Guys, what are you thinking?
Which one are we giving away? The cake stuff?
Now we're giving away the whiskey and the tumblers.
That's so cool. I'm a big fan of that.
Oh wait, hold on.
Cake. It's the Glenmorangie taste of cake. Slice of cake. What about
Sophie Gregorio, Jojo Rabbit, Boy in the Striped Pajamas? That was a great. Schindler's List, Life is Beautiful, and Sophie's Choice.
That is the Lifetime movie assortment of 45 movies. I
think she needs the whiskey.
There is some emotional things happening in who is that in that person's list, and you have empathy. I feel you. That the cake whiskey is going to be great for you because it's like eating cake but no carbs. So
I think Sophie, you are the winner. Both of you guys just write in a quick note to them. They'll reach out and tell you how to get your winnings. Congratulations.
So Sophie, you're winning a bottle of whiskey that is so new. I don't even have a real bottle of it yet. I have this. It's brand new.
Amazing.
And it is a Glenmorangie that is aged, finished in Hungarian Royal Tokai wine casks, and it is it's got these incredible kind of cake-like notes, marzipan, all sorts of things in there. It's delicious, delicious whiskey.
Will you send me like a little shot of that, David? Just in the post.
Let's talk after this. I'll send you a bottle. Don't worry.
All right.
There we go. Well, I want to thank David Blackmore and Lulu Picart for being on the show tonight. Lulu, where can everybody find you on the social medias?
Yes, everybody, you can find me at Lulu Picart. That's Picart. Lulu Picart on Instagram and on Twitter. And if you go there, you'll find links to the podcasts right there. So it's super easy. Lulu Picart. Would love to see you on there and say hi.
David? Does anybody want to find? Does anybody want to find you? First of all,
probably not. No.
I mean, because you're going to overwhelm them with all your talkity, olfactory speak over there. No, I'm kidding.
I apologize.
By the way, I love that you know more than most people have forgotten about.
I love it.
I love that.
I can't wait for the olfactory webinar.
I like absorbing all that geeky shit, but at the same time, it's not about that really. It's just about the enjoyment of the whiskey. I like both, but you don't have to. Don't feel intimidated by it. Just get out there. In fact, if you feel intimidated by whiskey, I implore you to go out there and give 2 fingers to the man and go and enjoy it. Frankly, seriously.
I, of course, want to invite you to follow me at the Imbiber, Twitter, Instagram. Check out the podcast, What We're Drinking with Dan Dunn. Like I said, I don't know who's on there right now. I can't even remember. John Legend was just on. John Legend. But wow. Monday, Pitbull.
Crazy.
Pitbull. Come on, man. And then this week, we've got a double shot of NightCap Live this week. This very Thursday, same time, same bat channel. Our old friends Sarah and Chad from It's Bourbon Night are going to be joining me. We're going to be sipping 1792 bourbon. It's a whiskey week for me, guys. A whiskey week, and Lulu and David will be watching from the confines of the blue room and the room with all the whiskey I'm jealous of.
I know, right?
Yes.
Is that all locked up, by the way? Is that locked up, David, back there? It looks like
No.
Oh yeah, you're crazy if you think I'm watching from the blue room. I'm watching at David's.
You're going to David's. That's probably a smart idea. Yeah.
You're welcome as long as you wear a mask.
Texas in pretty short term.
Only mask. Only
Guys,
mask.
This has been so much fun, and I really thank you. And thank you to everybody out there, as always, for tuning in and hanging out with us. I'm back in 2 days. I can't wait. Looking forward to seeing you. And since I got ice in here, I'm going to hide it from David. I don't want him to make fun of me. Bye.